Chloe's words from the night before echoed in my mind. Imagine the thrill of keeping it a secret. I understood now. This wasn't just about wearing the uniform. It was about inhabiting a persona, a version of me that had been confined to the shadows for too long. The next challenge was makeup. I had never worn much, just a light touch of concealer on rare occasions, but Chloe had left a small kit, complete with foundation, eyeshadow, and mascara. I stared at the brushes, nervous, clumsy fingers trembling. My first stroke of foundation felt alien, yet exhilarating. The mirror reflected not just my image, but my uncertainty and curiosity, all wrapped together in the soft blush of transformation. Each brush stroke was a little rebellion against the monotony of my usual life. When I finished, I stared at myself in awe. My eyes, framed with subtle eyeliner and mascara, seemed larger, more expressive. My lips, lightly tinted, looked softer, almost inviting. I barely recognized the person staring back, yet I felt connected to her, as if she had always been waiting inside me. My pulse quickened. The phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was Isabella. She wanted to know if I was free that evening for dinner. I froze. How could I meet her like this? My heartbeat accelerated. The thought of her seeing me in this state, half fear, half thrill, made my stomach twist. And yet, the idea of hiding this newfound version of myself also seemed unbearable. I knew I couldn't resist the temptation. I texted her back with a vague excuse, pretending I had to work late. As soon as the message was sent, a wave of relief and disappointment washed over me. Relief, because I could explore this new identity freely. Disappointment, because part of me wanted her to see, to understand. But that was a risk I couldn't yet take. The hours passed slowly, each tick of the clock magnifying the suspense. Chloe would be home soon, and with her came both reassurance and danger. I practiced walking around the apartment, the heels unfamiliar but exhilarating. Each step carried a new rhythm, a confidence I hadn't expected. My reflection followed me everywhere, watching, judging, encouraging. Then came the first real test, calling a friend, someone oblivious to my secret. My fingers hovered over the phone. What if my voice betrayed me? What if they heard the subtle tremor, the lighter tone that came naturally with this persona? I cleared my throat, forcing a casual cadence, and made the call. Conversation flowed, and my heart eased slightly, but a thrill lingered. I had almost forgotten I was Ethan in that moment. Chloe arrived in the late afternoon, and her reaction was immediate. She froze at the doorway, then a grin spread across her face. "Oh my God, Ethan," she breathed, stepping closer. "You're incredible." Her voice carried both admiration and amusement, a dangerous combination. "Don't laugh," I stammered, tugging at the skirt nervously. "It's just a joke." She shook her head. "No, it's more than a joke. You look perfect. I knew you'd enjoy it. But remember, this is just the beginning." Her words hung in the air, teasing, foreboding. Chloe had planned this like a game. She insisted I pose, walk, even practice a few gestures, tilting my head, crossing my legs, teaching me how to embody the persona fully. I followed reluctantly at first, then with growing excitement. The apartment felt smaller, more intimate, each step echoing against the walls. I was aware of every sound, every movement, every flicker of shadow. The thrill of being observed, even by just Chloe, was intoxicating. By evening, I was exhausted but exhilarated. I slipped into the living room, heels clicking softly against the floor, my reflection in every window and mirror catching my attention. Chloe sat on the couch, smiling with that dangerous gleam. "You're a natural," she whispered. "Soon, we'll see just how far you're willing to go." And that's when the real suspense began. The thrill wasn't just about clothes or makeup, it was about secrecy, about the danger of discovery. Isabella could return at any moment. What if she walked in? What if someone in the building saw me? My chest tightened. I realized, for the first time, that the excitement of transformation was inseparable from the anxiety it produced. Every thrill was heightened by the risk. Night fell, and the apartment darkened, leaving only the soft glow of streetlights and Chloe's teasing presence. She suggested small challenges. Answer a text without revealing your voice, sneak a snack without getting your shoes dirty, even practice writing in a delicate hand. Each task made me acutely aware of my dual existence, the careful balancing act between Ethan and the persona I was beginning to embrace. By the time I finally removed the outfit, carefully folding each piece and setting it aside, I felt changed. Not just in appearance, but in understanding. The bet had started as a joke, but it had opened a door to a world I had only dreamed of. A world filled with suspense, curiosity, and the thrill of being someone entirely new. I collapsed onto the bed, heart still racing, mind replaying every moment. The swish of the skirt, the weight of the heels, the thrill of secrecy. Tomorrow, Chloe promised, we would push the boundaries further. And deep down, I knew I was ready. Ready to embrace the transformation, ready to explore this hidden side of myself fully. For the first time in years, I felt alive in a way that scared and excited me in equal measure. The next morning, sunlight streamed through my blinds, sharper this time, harsher. It was as if the world outside had awakened to judge me. My body was still buzzing from yesterday's experiments with Chloe's bet, and a mix of excitement and dread twisted inside me like a living thing. Today wasn't just another private session. I could feel it in the air. Something was about to happen. Chloe had left a note on my desk. Big day. Surprise guest. Be ready. My stomach clenched. Surprise guest? I had no idea who she could mean. Panic and thrill warred in my chest. I quickly slipped into the uniform, the fabric soft and familiar against my skin now. The skirt swished differently today, as though alive, echoing the anxiety in my legs. I tied the bow at my neck, adjusted the blouse, and stepped into the heels with a nervous click. Each step was louder, more deliberate, every movement broadcasting vulnerability and anticipation. I glanced at the mirror. The girl staring back was confident yet trembling. I touched my hair, adjusting the wig Chloe had styled perfectly. This was no longer a casual bet. It was an immersion into a persona I couldn't hide from, a world where the stakes were suddenly terrifyingly real. The doorbell rang. My heart stopped. That sound, so ordinary, carried catastrophic potential. Chloe's voice called out from the hallway, cheerful and teasing. Don't panic. Open it slowly. I hesitated, fingers frozen on the doorknob. The person behind that door could see me like this. Could see all of me. My secret, my thrill, my fear. I turned the knob and pulled the door open. It was Isabella. She looked confused at first, then her eyes widened. I could see the shock, the unspoken question. Ethan? Her voice faltered, delicate, almost trembling. I stammered, my mind racing. It's Chloe's bet. Her gaze darted over me. Skirt, blouse, heels, makeup, and I saw a mixture of disbelief, curiosity, and, somewhere buried deep, something else. A bet, she repeated, voice shaking. You wore this? Yes, I admitted, voice barely a whisper. My palms were sweaty, my knees weak. It started as a joke, but I wanted to try it. I like it. For a moment, the room was silent. I could feel every heartbeat, every tremor, every thought suspended in the space between us. Isabella stepped closer, her eyes scanning my face, searching for the Ethan she knew beneath this new identity. I don't know what to say, she murmured. It's different. But you're beautiful. Her words, tentative, careful, struck me like lightning. Relief flooded me, but it was quickly overshadowed by a new wave of fear. Chloe had promised surprise, and I suddenly realized she might have orchestrated this encounter. Chloe appeared at that exact moment, bursting into the room with her characteristic grin. Surprise, she exclaimed, clapping her hands. Perfect timing, Ethan. Isn't this exactly what I planned? I shot her a look that was part panic, part frustration. You what? Oh, don't be dramatic, Chloe laughed. I just thought it would be fun if Isabella saw you like this. You look amazing. Come on, don't tell me you're scared now. The room felt smaller, more suffocating. I could feel my secret self, my alter ego, shrinking under the intensity of their combined gaze. But a strange thrill surged through me. Being caught, being exposed, yet feeling accepted, it was intoxicating, terrifying, and liberating all at once. Isabella's voice broke through my thoughts. Ethan, can you stay like this for a little? Just for me to understand. I nodded, barely breathing. Chloe cheered quietly in the background, eyes sparkling with mischief. I stood there, frozen yet alive, the heels grounding me while the skirt swished with every minute movement. Minutes passed in silence, each second a suspended eternity. Isabella walked around me, examining the transformation, touching the fabric lightly, her fingertips ghosting across the blouse. The sensation was electric, her touch was careful, tentative, and the closeness sent my pulse into overdrive. Then came the first obstacle. My phone buzzed loudly on the counter. I reached for it, but in my haste, one heel caught on the rug. I stumbled forward, arms flailing, barely regaining my balance. Chloe doubled over with laughter, while Isabella's eyes widened, concern etched across her face. You're clumsy in them," she said softly, a small smile breaking through. "But I like it." I could barely breathe. The thrill of walking the line between exposure and acceptance was overwhelming. Every glance, every touch, every stumble heightened the tension. I realized that this was more than just clothing. It was a game of emotional balance, of trust and fear and desire interwoven in ways I had never imagined. Then the unexpected twist. The door opened again. A neighbor, a nosy woman from across the hall, peeked in. "Is everything okay?" she asked, voice casual but curious. Panic gripped me. I tried to hide behind the couch, but the skirt betrayed me. My pulse thundered in my ears. Isabella stepped forward, calm but commanding. "Everything's fine," she said firmly, her hand brushing against mine in a subtle but grounding gesture. The neighbor nodded and left, but the shock left a residue of fear that made my legs quake. Chloe, meanwhile, whispered in my ear, "See? This is the thrill part. The risk, the danger, it makes it real." I closed my eyes, heart pounding, sweat beading my forehead. This was no longer a simple bet. This was a test of identity, trust, and courage. Each movement I made, each decision to stay in character, was a negotiation with my fears. Then came the symbolic moment that would define the climax. I adjusted my wig, brushing a strand from my face, when it suddenly slipped, revealing a patch of my real hair underneath. My breath caught. Isabella gasped softly, but didn't recoil. Chloe's eyes sparkled, as if she had been waiting for this exact moment. "You see?" Chloe whispered. "This is why it's perfect. Imperfections, slips, they make it real. You're not hiding. You're showing who you truly are." I froze, torn between embarrassment and exhilaration. The mirror reflected both Ethan and the girl he was becoming, layered together in a single, fragile moment. Every heartbeat felt magnified, every glance sharp, every movement a declaration of vulnerability and courage. Isabella's voice, soft and unwavering, cut through the tension. "It's okay. I like seeing both sides of you, the real and the transformed." Relief, joy, fear, and desire collided in a storm within me. I realized then that the climax wasn't about Chloe's bet or even the outfit. It was about connection, exposure, and the raw thrill of inhabiting a space where my secret self could finally breathe. And just as the tension seemed unbearable, the final obstacle struck. My phone, forgotten on the counter, began ringing with a loud, insistent tone. It was my boss calling about an urgent work matter. The sound cut through the room like a knife. My hands trembled. Could I answer? Should I risk being heard like this? Or should I let it go, risking consequences at work? I glanced at Isabella and Chloe. Both were watching me intently, waiting for my decision. My heart pounded so violently, I feared it would betray me. I took a deep breath, lifted the phone with trembling hands, and pressed answer. The voice on the other end was sharp, businesslike. "Ethan, we need that report. Are you at your desk?" I froze. The uniform, the heels, the wig, all screamed exposure. My pulse raced. Could I pretend? Could I maintain the voice? Every second stretched into eternity. Yes, just finishing up," I murmured, voice catching slightly. Chloe's grin widened. Isabella's hand squeezed mine. My dual identity was hanging by a thread, and yet I felt alive in a way I never had before. The room seemed to pulse with suspense. Every glance, every movement, every whispered word was charged with electricity. I realized in that instant that this wasn't just a bet anymore. It was a test, a transformation, a revelation. And nothing would ever be the same again. The phone call ended, but the adrenaline didn't subside. My legs were trembling from the heels, my hands still tingling from holding the receiver. Chloe was beside me, her grin impossibly wide, like she had orchestrated this entire chaos for her own amusement. Isabella's gaze, soft yet piercing, never left me. There was a tension in the air so thick, I could almost feel it pressing down on my shoulders. I sank onto the couch, careful to keep my skirt in place, my chest heaving. Isabella knelt in front of me, gently brushing a loose strand of hair from my face. "Ethan, or her, whoever you want to be right now," she said softly, voice trembling. "I don't know what this is, but I want to understand it. I want to see this side of you." Her words, warm and accepting, should have eased me, but instead, they magnified the fear. What if this wasn't enough? What if, despite her words, she couldn't accept the full truth? What if my secret self, this hidden persona I had been nurturing for years, was too much to bear for anyone outside my private experiments? Chloe, sensing the shift in the room, leaned closer. "You're doing great," she whispered, her voice playful yet teasingly dangerous. "But remember, Ethan, the game isn't over. Not yet. The real challenge? That comes next. Next." The word reverberated through my mind like a warning bell. I knew she meant something beyond the safe confines of my apartment, beyond the controlled thrill of private transformation. The suspense was suffocating, each tick of the clock stretching the moment further. Then, as if on cue, the door creaked open. My heart lurched. It wasn't Chloe. It wasn't Isabella. Someone else. Shadows fell across the doorway, and I caught a glimpse of a figure that didn't belong. Someone unexpected. "You didn't think you could keep this a secret forever, did you?" A familiar voice sneered from the hallway. My stomach dropped. Chloe stiffened beside me, her playful demeanor replaced by sudden tension. Isabella gasped, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. And I froze. The girl in the mirror, the persona I had built so carefully over the past hours, felt fragile, exposed, vulnerable to shattering at any moment. I glanced at my reflection one last time, catching the swirl of emotions in the eyes staring back. Fear, exhilaration, shame, thrill, and an unspoken desire that I couldn't fully control. The duality of who I was, Ethan, the man, and the girl in the uniform, collided in a dizzying, unstoppable storm. The figure stepped closer, and my breath caught in my throat. Whoever it was had seen me, or at least suspected something. The suspense wrapped around me like a vice, tightening with each passing second. My mind raced. Should I run? Should I hide? Or should I stand tall, letting this new version of myself face the world for the first time? Chloe whispered urgently, "Stay calm, don't panic. You can handle this." But my hands shook too violently to respond. Isabella reached out, her fingers brushing mine, grounding me, giving me just enough courage to keep breathing. The figure stopped just at the edge of the living room, and a shadowed face slowly came into view. Recognition hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just a neighbor, a coworker, or a random visitor. This was someone who had the power to change everything, someone who could unravel the careful threads of secrecy I had spent years weaving. "Ethan," the voice said again, this time closer, sharper. My chest tightened. The uniform, the heels, the bow, Everything that had made me feel so alive suddenly felt like chains, trapping me in a vulnerability I wasn't sure I could survive. Chloe's grin returned, but it was tempered by tension. "Well," she said, voice dripping mischief, "looks like the game just got a lot more interesting." Isabella's eyes searched mine, silently asking the question that had been forming all day. "Can I trust this side of you? Can we survive what's about to happen?" I swallowed hard, every instinct screaming both fear and exhilaration. My reflection in the mirror caught my gaze again, and for a split second, I saw two selves staring back, one trembling, the other fierce, daring, and unbroken. The moment was suspended in time, a razor-edge balance between exposure and courage, risk and desire. The figure took one deliberate step forward, and my stomach dropped. The next words, the next move, could change everything. My secret, my thrill, my identity, all teetered on the brink. And then the screen went black.